Good Wednesday morning of the second week. Let's jump over to St. Mark, the gospel today, okay? All righty? Because the truth be told, the letter of the Hebrews is over my head. I don't know what to say about it. So, somebody else, well, when you go to church this day, maybe the priest is giving the homily will have something to say about the letter to the Hebrews. But I got to say, this one is over my head. At least I don't understand it well enough to give an account of it. But the gospel is straightforward. Mark always writes in a straightforward manner. Jesus entered the synagogue. There was a man there who had a withered hand. They watched Jesus closely to see if he would cure him on the Sabbath, so they might accuse him. He said to the man with the withered hand, "Come up here before us." Then he said to the Pharisee, "Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath rather than evil? To save life rather than to destroy it?" They remained silent, looking around at them with anger and grieved at their hardness of heart. Jesus said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out and immediately took counsel with the Herodians against him to put him to death. In many ways, that seems like a theater of the absurd. This guy just pulled off the miracle of the century, and you want to whack him. Why? Because he broke a rule? Broke the law? Well, you have to understand the law. The law, the Judaic law, is what God gave Moses. And it is absolutely sacred. Absolutely sacred. And it can't be defiled. Transcends everything because it is the one thing that unites them completely. The Hebrew Jewish community is the law. Okay? Hence, when Christ does violence to the law, he puts himself above, as it were, God who gave the law. And he sets himself up that way as, in fact, above the law. He is the Son of God. He is God. Hence, he transcends the law, and he can transcend it in a manner that does a good almost despite the law, or above in the spirit of the law, but not in the letter of the law. I think I said that right. See? Now, I think that's it's very, very important for in the life of service, whether it's religious life or priesthood or whatever, nuns or teaching, any service to humanity, was waiting on a table like my father. You have to do the thing not only according to the minimal conditions of the routine or the law, that whatever, but profoundly in its spirit. That if you're waiting on tables in the restaurant, you are serving the people. And in serving the people, you make their dining experience far richer than it would be without it. I told you what that Jewish couple said at my father's funeral. It's one of the most beautiful lines I think I've ever heard. I mean, not only about my father, about anybody. But it was so profoundly insightful. And you had to know the old man. You had to know my father. You remember with the Jewish man? I told you this already. I know. I'm repeating myself. I apologize for it, but not for what it said. He said to my mother and to Pete and I, Mr. Vitale made the food taste better just by talking to us. Isn't that a wonderful line? I would hope maybe in my form of service, somebody would say in their heart, not to me, but in their heart, he made things better today because of what he said. See? And I wonder how in your own homes, without it ever being said vocally or explicitly, it's felt that she or he made me better today, made me feel better. But by what she said to me, by what he said to me, by what he said. You catch that every so often in conversation with people. when I call touch a nerve, now you can touch it in a bad way. It's extremely painful. You're cutting at somebody. You don't mean to, but you still do it. But it's equally powerful, but for the good. When you say that word with that gesture that touches their heart with beauty, they feel themselves beautiful because of what you said. You know, I think I had an example of that myself, whatever it's worth, you know. It was my friend Sarah. It was a long time ago. Over 10 years ago, 14 years ago. She was my student. And we were in the corridor. She was crying. And her face was all scrounged up and her tears were, I forgot even why she was, but she was crying. And I reached out and I held her shoulders. And I said to her, Sarah, do you know how beautiful you are? And the reason is, in those crying moments with her tears and a frown on her face, she was so beautiful to me. She was so beautiful. By saying that, it moved her deeply. It touched her deeply. I didn't plan it. I responded to the moment. Was it the appropriate thing to say? Yeah, it was. Why? Because it's the moment. Yeah. Many times have you reassured each other in your lives, your spouses, your children, sometimes by a simple word. Oh, you look lovely today. You say that to your wife or husband. You look good today. You know, that suit looks good on you. It's a simple little line, but it's a refreshing line. I don't know. You know, you have to maintain the rules of the game, the moral laws and all the rest, and the politeness. But you don't have to be a fanatic the way the Pharisees were. They needed to do that. It was their livelihood, their job, their vocation. But in the end, you have to cure the hand that's withered. You have to do what is good and life-bearing. I think of that at church all the time, at Mass. While there is a certain kind of demeanor and piety about being present, there's also the need to be sensitive and aware, maybe of the beauty of the moment in a given person, or it could be the sadness in a person, or someone who is needy. There's a rule: you can't stop the liturgy for any reasons, you know, basically. But I think so many times, wouldn't it be better to pause when you see something that is, from my point of view, from our point of view, the clergy, you see something so sad in front of you. Somebody is hurting. Somebody's crying. You know, or you just keep going, indifferent to it. Okay. I think Christ would respond to the person crying, even during the Mass. You know, especially when the community is together in support of one another. Why not pause at a given moment to reassure with the tenderness of care and love that we're together with you in this Mass, in Christ, and with each other. I mean it. I know it's important that we maintain the rules of liturgy. This is not showtime. It's not. But it is also a moment of intimate reflection with the church as a whole, the church that is present, the people of the church. And that means the more we engage it as a people of the church who love each other or seek to love each other, that we see each other. And with the tenderness of love and faith, we encourage and strengthen each other. We're not an equation. We're flesh and blood. And the church is flesh and blood. Christ was flesh and blood. He bled on the cross. That's the truth. That is the truth.